The Enchantress, aka Amora the Enchantress, a long-standing Loki character who is known for her love for Thor and her frequent collaborations with one Loki Laufeyson. However, there have been many people to take up the Enchantress name. One was a person supposedly created by Loki to a certain degree, whether it was a normal person given powers by Loki, or an entirely made up person created by Loki. This person named Sylvie Lushton, and more specifically, she was created during the time of the female Loki. Given magical powers and all that, this enchantress Sylvie tried to be a good person, only to ultimately stray down a darker and darker path until the true Enchantress came to take her name back, sending Sylvie hurling into another dimension that she had little chance of surviving in. And that is the last known location of Sylvie Lushton. Now, how does that relate to this episode? Well, after an attempt by the female Loki variant to get to the Timekeepers, a battle with our Loki who had gone after her, they end up being transported as Loki manages to grab her tempad and transport them to another point in time. They do battle. She demands not to be called Loki as she doesn't want to be seen as just another variant. And eventually they kind of come to an uneasy truce as Loki kind of hides away her tempad. And it also ends up running out of juice. So with Loki hiding her tempad, she's not able to just take it and cut and run. They have to work together to get off of a planet that Loki had accidentally brought them to, and that's Lamentis 1. A planet that, in 2077, had its moon slowly crashing into it. So, it's an apocalyptic event where nobody survives, the entire planet goes kablooey, and they have to find a way to juice up the tempad and GT the FO before their imminent destruction. They end up finding out from one of the locals, a very colorful young lady, that the only place that might have the power that they need is a ark to get off the planet. So as they make their way to the nearby train to get to the ark, we slowly get to find out more and more about the variation of this Loki variant, who has deemed herself the name Sylvie in order to disassociate from her variant status, and thus the Enchantress. Not to mention the fact that her powers aren't like our Loki, who does a lot of parlor tricks and what have you. No, we come to find out that this Loki variant, or as I'll dub her Sylvie, Laufey's daughter, she is actually self-taught in the art of enchantment. We even got to see a little bit of how she managed to override Hunter C20's mind and get the information on the location of the Timekeepers. And as they manage to get onto the train with a little bit of trickery from our Loki, they have an interesting, a nice little chat, which serves as the focal point, honestly, of this episode. It's the true kind of discovery moment. It's the real meat of this episode. Just finding out the ways that these two Lokis are similar, yet different. And I also just love the angle of making it so that, because Loki and the Enchantress have a long-standing history of working together throughout Marvel Comics. You can even go as far as a lot of the forms of media here and there. Things such as Hulk vs. Thor, the movie, as well as Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and other appearances in stuff like Avengers Assemble and stuff. Loki always ends up working with the Enchantress in some way, shape, or form, basically just to cause mischief on Asgard. So having the Enchantress be a different version of Loki is hilarious to me, because it really does highlight their uneasy relationship as well as their weird similarities. It's an interesting idea just to take that the next step beyond in just making the Enchantress another version of Loki to a certain degree. However, this version of Loki was actually told that she was a frost giant and all that good stuff. Though never learned magic, only learned enchantment, I'm actually interested to go deeper into her history. She even has memories of her actual birth mother, although minor as they may be. Whereas Loki, our Loki, talks about the fact that he was taught by Frigga, magic and all that, and how much of an inspiration to him Frigga actually was. Honestly speaking, I wish we had seen a lot more of that in the original Thor movie. Really could have highlighted the tragedy of the direction that Loki went. But eventually they get found out as the train that they're on. It's obvious that the wealthy are being shepherded towards the Ark and not the lower classes. And well, our two Lokis don't have tickets, so they find themselves in a fight and ultimately end up being ejected from the train, have to have the long walk to the city that houses the Ark. The city that the Ark is at is a sight to behold. Neon lights, very Blade Runner-esque. I love the blue ambient lighting that's all around them. It is surreal. So their quest is basically to get to the shuttle and find some way to juice up the tempad. Or at the very least, use the shuttle to temporarily get off the planet. So they try to make their way to the shuttle. Unfortunately, a lot of the forces that they encountered on the train are now hunting them down in the city as well. So they're making this mad dash to the Ark while fighting off all these security forces. And you really do get to see the two Loki strut their individual techniques and stuff as a whole. Sylvie is very well combat oriented. It's actually fascinating how battle ready she actually is. Whereas our Loki uses a lot more of his magics and abilities and stuff along those lines. Mostly because Sylvie has to get in close in order to enchant people. Although, interestingly enough, she's unable to enchant our Loki, though he says it's because his will is too strong. How true that actually is anyone's guess. But as they near the Ark, suddenly the moon above just splits in half, rains even more destruction upon the city, and even ends up destroying the Ark. Which especially leaves them out of luck, as earlier the tempad that Loki was carrying with him got deeply damaged. So the Ark was their only means of getting off the planet safely. But as history has recorded, nobody survives on Lamentis 1. What will our Lokis do? How will they get off the planet? This uneasy alliance is actually really kicking into high gear. Now, if I had to guess, I'm thinking members of the TVA will actually end up coming after them. And while they'll manage to get off the destroyed planet, they will find themselves on trial at the TVA, with Loki even selling out Sylvie in order to save his own skin. Although we do find out something deeply interesting from Sylvie that I think Loki will end up using against members of the TVA, namely Mobius and Mobius. And that's that, as she was searching through the mind of Hunter C-20, she discovered that Hunter C-20 did have a life before the Time Variance Authority. She had memories of drinking Mai Tais on the beach and so on and so forth. They were 100-year deep memories, but they were there nonetheless. As she reveals, the members of the TVA, which I kind of assumed this from the start, but I wasn't sure how relevant it would be, members of the TVA are all variants themselves, plucked from time. And a lot of people had this theory as well because, well, Mobius and Mobius likes a lot of stuff from the 90s, so it's pretty obvious he's been plucked from the 90s. There's been a lot of hints and stuff. But then you get to characters like Casey, who doesn't even know what a fish is, so it raises a lot of questions in certain areas. Why would he not know what a fish is? But it would make sense for them to make variants their Minutemen and soldiers and bureaucracy and all that. I mean, what better way to have an infinite amount of flunkies than to just pluck them from time? Or just take any variant who might appear and use them to your own ends. It makes a lot of sense. Although for some reason I didn't realize how in the dark a lot of these members of the TVA actually are. So with that knowledge, Loki is definitely going to end up using that against them somewhere down the line. Now, whether or not Mobius, knowing all of Loki's tricks, will actually believe him is honestly anyone's guess, as Mobius really kind of drinks the Kool-Aid for the most part, although there have been slight glimmers that he might know more than he lets on, or at least might be questioning the TVA more than he lets on. So time will tell what the true nature of the TVA is at some point, but the idea that ultimately they aren't what they seem, again, feels like something that's very obvious, but in what way is only a matter of time. I'm still under the impression that this is all one plan of Kang the Conqueror, in order to create one sacred timeline, as it were. His timeline. All things lead to Kang. And that'll be the connection with the rest of all the other multiversal storylines, as it were. Kang has been manipulating all these events in order to lead to one solid future that he himself rules over. Honestly, that makes the most sense to me, but tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think of my theories, and what did you think about this episode in general? If you liked anything I had to say here, please like, comment, subscribe, bell, all that good YouTube stuff, or don't. I ain't your daddy, but I still love you like one. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.